Okay, so before we get down to, my issues with Red Dead 2, I want to point out that it is a fantastic game. I don't have any complaints with regards to a lot of things. There are so many positives about the game that honestly, it's kind of too much to go into. But this is literally just aimed at the negatives, at least that I've come across in the game. And the first one that is pretty damn prolific as far as I'm concerned is I have a tendency of getting wanted for crimes that I haven't actually committed, or they're stupid ass crimes. One of the examples that I have is there was a case of me. I was walking through, I think it was a wooded area, completely no one around, and this woman was being chased by these two guys. They had pistols drawn, they were shooting at her. So instinctively, I shot them. She ran away scared, I get that, and then I'm suddenly wanted for disturbing the peace, and I'm like, alright, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Why is that, of all the things that I'm getting accused of doing, the thing that's the issue? If I was in a city, if I was in a town, if I was even near a town, I could have got it, but I wasn't. I was nowhere near a town, so I didn't do anything. I just stood there, not a weapon drawn or anything, just went, you know what, I'll just stand here, let them come over to me, see what happens. The friggin' police, or whatever they're called, came over to me. They just shot me dead, just because I broke the silence. That's annoying. Don't remember when I'd last saved. I think it took me back maybe 15 minutes or something. But that's stupid, honestly, very stupid. Another issue that I've had several times is actually with some of the main mission sort of endings. So obviously I understand that you're part of Dutch's gang, and obviously you're going to do things that are technically illegal and you're going to get in trouble for them, and I'm fine with that. But I'm fairly sure at the beginning of at least from the only train sort of heist in the main missions, or you're told, to make sure that you put like the bandana around your face or the scarf or whatever, so people don't know who you are, so you don't walk away from the situation a wanted man. Well, I did that, obviously, and not once did I drop it. Left it up, even though apparently all the other guys dropped them during like a cutscene after you've finished the heist, so they can talk to each other, which seems stupid. So there I am, mask up, whatever. Leave the situation. You're wanted. There's like a $350 bounty on your head, and I'm like, what? Why? Like, you're not supposed to know who I am. How do you know who I am? So then obviously you can't go back in that area without having the police magically find you. And so that just seems stupid to me. And even though I understand it may be to try and push you to do the next thing, if you're giving me an open world, unless you've got a good reason to stop me from exploring a section of that open world, don't lock it behind, oh, you've done this mission, so now you can't go back here. That just seems stupid. I've also had issues where there was a guy that was shot in the middle of the first town. I think it's Valentine. I don't know why he was shot. I watched two guys just shoot the ass out of him and then leg it, okay? This was witnessed by many NPCs walking around. They all freaked out, obviously. And then I watched a cart get stuck on his body. And I don't know why I bothered doing this, but I thought, hey, I'll move his body out the way so the cart isn't stuck on it, right? Picked up his body. Suddenly I'm wanted for murder. Why? I didn't kill him. There must be something in the game that stresses the fact that, people can go, oh, look, you're carrying a dead body. You must be wanted for murder. Even though everybody literally just watched me and I didn't kill him. That's a big issue for me, personally. I've had many little issues like this where, like I say, I'm being accused of crimes that I didn't commit, or I'm being accused, rightfully so, for a crime that I have committed, but the whole point of the bandana and stuff is that you're anonymous. You can't get tagged for that crime. And I feel like the game perhaps should have implemented a sort of a familiarity sort of meter. So, if you're in a town like Valentine for quite a while, people around there are going to know what you look like. putting a bandana around your face isn't going to suddenly make you incognito. You know, oh, that guy looks a lot like Arthur, but with a bandana on his face. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, so that's fine. But even if you change clothes and shave, people obviously still have the same recognition, and that would have been an interesting thing to implement. That's not me necessarily moaning about these specifics there, but perhaps that's something they should have incorporated. And if it is incorporated in the game, they should make it damn slightly more obvious. The other thing is that plenty of times, and I'm not sure whether this is because I have the PC version, and I know when the game first came out on PC, it was hounded with issues, although to be fair I didn't really seem to have any. Whenever you use the, I don't know what you call it, the interface to put up your bandana, plenty of times we've watched me put up the bandana and then instantly take it back down. And obviously I'm using a controller, so it should work in my head the same way as it works on a console. And so if that's something that is still part of the game, where, you know, you're giving it commands and it's not following them, especially as part of the interface, to me that's not on. And it's not the same, obviously, like when we've been playing Green Hell recently, that we are accidentally touching aspects of the user interface and making ourselves fall asleep, etc. This isn't the same, and that's happened plenty of times. So I have major issue with the fact that, one, the bandana is supposed to make you not immune to the law, but, you know, the whole point of this game is a sandbox cowboy. You're supposed to be able to do what you want, but then even if you use it, they still know who you are, which begs the question, what's the point? And especially to have that in main missions seems stupid to me. I'm sure that may be for a story element, and I get that, but it doesn't seem very fair to me in a game where, you know, hey, here's this mechanic that makes you invisible to the law, and then when you actually do use it, it doesn't work because, hey, it's a main mission, what you gonna do? That's a problem. Another issue that I have with the game is, this is a personal issue, this isn't an issue with how the game's made or anything, but I find myself much less attractive to the idea of having a group of people to come back to than I did playing as John in the first game. I prefer the idea of being a lone sort of gunman, I guess, or cowboy, or whatever you want to call it, where you don't have to worry about other people. And it's aggravating that if you spend any time away from main camp, you come back, you start getting berated by people for not being around, you need to be adding your donations and stuff, when I could have, I mean, I've had this happen where I've donated like $750 to the camp funds, and that's more, say, on that one time than all of the other NPCs have done throughout the entire game so far. And yet when I've been away for, say, a couple of days in-game, I'm being berated for not doing enough for the group. Now, I understand it's a game, but that doesn't seem very fair, and it aggravates me because I feel like I preferred the idea with John of being able to walk away from the main missions or the side missions, go and doing some exploring, go doing whatever you want, you know, and there's no one to come back and be like, well, where have you been for the last 7 days or whatever. And whilst I really do appreciate and really enjoy the sort of more communal aspects of Dutch's gang, whether that be sitting about the fire and watching them talk about, you know, past stories and stuff, and it is more realistic, I guess, I would argue that it pulls me more out of the game to have them having a go at me for not doing my bit for the party when I've done more for the group, donation-wise at the very least, than any other member of that, and having that essentially thrown at me just because I've not donated anything, you know? And I'm sure other people have probably had this exact same sort of annoyance, because I think most of the gang actually donate like $1 here or $1.50 there, or even sometimes like 75 cents. And I'm sure most people, when they donate to that, when they're playing as Arthur, dumping $50, $60, $70, if not more. I know I usually won't do it in hundreds. So that annoys me. I like the fact that they've explained why John can't swim in the first game, but Arthur can. But honestly, can he? Because I'm not sure entirely which campsite this is, but you're at a campsite where you've got a river and there's a small island on the other side. At this point, I hadn't purchased the, I think it's like a canoe or the small boat upgrade. So I was like, hey, Arthur can swim. Let's swim over there and see what's over there. Well, apparently Arthur can swim for about 20 feet and then he drowns because he doesn't have the energy to get over, which seems stupid. Quite frankly, it seems absolutely stupid. You know, I'm not the strongest swimmer, and I'm not saying I could swim that, but what I will say is you know, if I start to get tired, I could tread water, doesn't use that much energy. Lie on your back, doesn't use that much energy. Arthur just drowns. That's ridiculous to me. In a game that requires energy and stuff for running, I get it, but he should have been able to do like a gentle breaststroke. And again, this is a video game. People don't play video games for the most realistic sort of experience on the planet, and so having a swimming mechanic that's so integral to your stamina bar, and swimming even at a normal speed reduces that stamina bar, to me, I'm not a fan of that. Rubbed me up a little bit on the wrong way, and controlling the canoe isn't the easiest thing on the planet. Again, I know real canoes aren't, but this is a video game. You know, you should kind of have you know, quality of life things. I don't think most people, like I say, play video games for the most realistic way of doing stuff. And that brings me to Arthur's controls. I always had beef with the original Red Dead 1 with the weird control scheme, and I don't like Grand Theft Auto games. I don't like the way that they run anyway, but I find Arthur turning seems sticky, and that might be a bit of a weird word to use, and I understand that they don't want you to pull back, say, on the joystick and he does a 180 on the spot, because that's not realistic. And again, they are going more for a realism, but I would say I've walked into more things and got stuck trying to climb up some steps more playing this game than I have pretty much any other game. The amount of times I've tried to climb up onto the decking to get into a shop and got fumbled by that step up, or I try and rotate him to climb up the stairs and he refuses, so I end up finding myself whacking the jump button consistently for him to jump up stuff, which obviously looks ridiculous. That just seems stupid to me, and I'm not entirely sure if anybody else has actually complained about this, but I don't like the way he controls. I think it's somehow less realistic than allowing me to pivot directly on the spot, and I think mapping human movement and human walking and stuff is ridiculously hard to do, and especially if you want it looking completely realistic. Obviously, the amount of times you play games where people can turn at stupid angles happens all the time, but this is a video game again, so you know, let me play it like it's a video game. Another issue I have, and I'm aware that, you know, this entire thing is me complaining about Red Dead 2, but as it says in the freaking picture at the top, issues. I'm not talking about the positives, because there's more positives, I'd say, than negatives, but all of these negatives drew me out of the game, and it's the reason why I was really engrossed in it. And I would say over maybe a week I had all these issues kind of hit me one after the other, to the point where I stopped for a couple of months, went back, had them happen again, and I haven't touched it for probably 6 months, if not longer. And I find the world, even though it's very realistic in so many ways, it's almost in some ways, and this is going to be me complaining about something that's kind of stupid, it's almost in some ways too realistic, because I find myself walking around going, oh wow, there's so much here, there's so much wildlife and stuff, but then the next minute I'm thinking, but it's empty. And that's something that I didn't expect to find in this, because one of the reasons I didn't buy the game when it was released on console was because I was waiting for it to come to PC. One, with the idea of, you know, you don't have to worry about the new consoles coming out and going, oh, well, it doesn't play on this or whatever. But I wanted the best visual experience I could get, and I think all my settings are pretty much on ultra or on high, running at 1080, and it runs steadily around 60 FPS. I've only had maybe the odd frame drop when a lot's going on. But walking around some of the forests or the cities, there's a lot going on, but it's going on in a way that kind of makes me feel like they're on rails. There's just people walking for the sake of walking, and I've followed a few people to see if there's anything interesting that they're talking about, and it just doesn't grab me. Now, in comparison, I walked around Novigrad in The Witcher 3 and found myself loving all of the tiny details that you could notice. Sometimes just walking past and having someone holler abuse at Geralt, and then I'm like, well, where the hell did that come from? And I look up and it's like a kid sat on like a rafter or a beam and just having a go at me. It's stupid, but it feels like it's got more life in it. And again, those characters are obviously just walking around doing their own thing, but I really do feel like, especially in the main city, and I can't remember what its name is off the top of my head, I find that there's aspects about it that I find feel quite empty despite how much activity is going on. And that's a really weird thing that I didn't expect in this game, because I loved Red Dead 1's towns and cities and found them very believable, again, from a gaming aspect. Whereas now I feel like there's a lot of people walking around, but I feel like if I was to follow one of them, I'd just watch them walking, like I say, like they're on rails, around a town doing nothing. And that's weird. And in comparison, you look at Skyrim, I know those people have full daily lives, but they feel like, weirdly, more fleshed out people with lives than they do in Red Dead 2. And I was expecting perhaps too much of the game when I started to play it, and that's on me. I can't complain and say that's on them, because I maybe did expect too much, but I find the whole thing kind of underwhelming. And it's a game that I went in with high expectations from a visual point of view, and everyone was saying, because obviously I'd read reviews about the game, because I think the PC version came out a year, maybe a year and a half after the original console release. But I went into it with good expectations. I absolutely loved the first game. I loved the DLC for the first game. And so to go into the second game and kind of come out of it feeling quite underwhelmed, like I say, perhaps I went in with too high expectations. I don't really know. But the whole thing just feels hinky to me. There's something that doesn't quite spark or resonate with me in the same way the first game did. And it's not Arthur, because even though initially I think everyone's opinion was the same as Arthur's a bit of a dick and you don't like him, you realise actually in some ways he's a better character than John. He's definitely more fleshed out. No, the game just kind of fell flat for me. And that's a shame. And also my last point that I want to point out, and I'm not sure if this is something that's actually in the game, but I know it's heavily spoke about, is that the rifles are supposed to have a reloading mechanic where you pull the trigger once it shoots, and as you release the trigger they're supposed to reload. Now I'm not sure if this is an actual thing or whether I read into something that was released announced before the game was released and I'm expecting it to be in there even though it's not. I feel like there should be a visual representation that you can see similar to the active reload in the Gears franchise. If this is the case and these rifles are supposed to have this weird reloading mechanic, which is a cool feature that I would enjoy using, then I do feel like there should be a visual representation that you can at least choose to have on screen to allow you to sort of active reload as best as you can. I end up finding myself in firefights essentially just hammering the fire button over and over and over again because I don't know when that rifle is ready to use, to the point now where I actually prefer the single shot rifles like the Springfield rifle because they seem like they tell me better when they have moved the bolt over and reloaded the next round. But yeah, I'm not I probably should have looked up on this before I decided to record this audio, but I definitely am not a fan of the Winchester type rifles because of that reload function. And I know that the majority of the UI for Red Dead 2 is pretty low, and it's better like that, I agree. But I definitely feel like maybe for an accessibility reasons, if nothing else, there should be a visual representation that you can choose to put on to allow you to see if your weapon is reloaded. And I think actually there's a circle that comes closer towards the pinpoint, like where your targeting reticule is, to allow you to see that. But it's not very clear. At the very least, if there was a tutorial or something, it either I missed it and didn't pay attention, or it never fully sunk in. But Yeah, that's some of my issues with Red Dead 2. And like I said, I do have a huge amount of positive things with it as well. I would probably give it an 8 out of 10. But most of these issues have been big enough that I found myself very much drawn out of the story, out of that sort of gameplay loop, to the point where, like I said, I haven't been back. And even though I want to go back to finish the story, I don't know if I really will. And I feel like if I do, I'm doing it more out of I want to know how it ends, rather than I enjoyed the gameplay aspect of it. And it doesn't strike me as a game that you should ever run through and grind through just to get through the main story, especially as I do know the main ending sort of thing, and so I want to spend as much time as I can just exploring the game, but I'm not enjoying that. So, but yeah, they're my main issues with it.